Welcome to No Romance Without Finance. Today, our guest is Nicole Eckels. Nicole is the founder and CEO of Glasshouse Fragrances, a global fragrance founded and brand headquartered in Sydney, Australia, with wanderlust-inspired fragrances that take you to the most unique and luxurious destinations around the world without ever stepping foot in an airport. The scents are also very personal to Nicole, who came from a very humble beginnings and were inspired by her desire to see the world and the travel-filled, glamorous life she one day hoped to have. In this episode, Nicole talks about her entrepreneurial journey, how she found a gap in the fragrance market and built her empire. She also talks about why you should never expect or rely on Prince Charming to build a life you want to live, and gives us the 3 characteristics essential for all successful entrepreneurs. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Patty. Thank you for having me. Such a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you so much. And I love having female entrepreneurs on the podcast because, my podcast is No Romance Without Finance, and it is really about empowering women to be financially independent. And so many women feel like they're stuck and maybe they have an idea, right? And they're like, well, this idea is never going to go anywhere. Or they're afraid to take a leap, they're afraid to take a risk. But you just took an idea that you had and you took a risk and it happened. So I really want to delve into that. So tell us a little bit about how this idea came about and what took you to this place where you are now.
So the company that I'm the CEO and founder of is called Glasshouse Fragrances, and
Right.
I moved to Australia in 2005 for a role in a company,
Okay.
and as the director of sales. And when I arrived in Sydney, I went to go to the store to buy products, just fragrance body products, candles, all of those sort of things that we
Right.
have lots of in the States.
Mhm.
And there was nothing. There was nothing. And so I
Really?
thought, there's nothing. And I said, wow, I'd always been looking for an idea that I could actually start something I felt would work, a gap, some white space that I could occupy. And there was
Mhm.
just moving country. It was right in my face. It was right there. And flash forward 17 years later, and now we are the largest fragrance brand in the Southern Hemisphere.
Oh
And
my
we just
gosh.
moved into the States recently, and we're absolutely killing it. We're in Bloomingdale's, Neiman's, Dillard's. We just launched in Canada and Hudson Bay. It's just going so incredibly well, and I'm so pleased that the audience there, the fragrance junkie lovers like myself, also feel like this is a great product and a great brand.
That is phenomenal. So, what was it about Australia and Sydney? Because candles and fragrances have been everywhere in the United States. What was it about Australia and Sydney that they didn't have this product?
I don't know. I when I first moved here, I thought, well, maybe Australians don't like fragrance.
Right.
And I held these like little focus groups in my house. I'd invite friends over. I had all these starter friends, when you move to a new place and you have
Right,
starter
right,
friends.
right.
I had all these starter friends, and I invited them over, and I thought, hey, you guys, what do you do when you want to fragrance your home, when you want to. And they just, well, we don't, because when we go to the dollar store, they have so-called fragrance candles, or these hot dollar whatever equivalent home
Mhm.
stores. There was either that, or you could go to these like little boutique gorgeous high-end fabulous shops in fabulous neighborhoods, and they'd have like a Velaspa candle that someone brought over and shipped it and then added their margin and added their margin. And they were selling Velaspa, which is not an expensive product at all, for like
Sure.
$100. And I just
Oh
thought,
my goodness.
well, that's why it was either exorbitantly
Mhm.
expensive or cheap and nasty, and you didn't want anything
Right,
to do with it. And that was the
right.
space that we filled.
And I love what you're saying because I I always get asked a lot because I provide financing for businesses to buy businesses, and in the commercial lending space. And people always ask me, well, what type of business should I create? What type of business should I start? And I always say you have to start a business where there's a need, where there's a gap, right? Where there's a need and no one has satisfied it, whatever it may be. And if you just look around or think of your own experience, and that's what happened with you, right? It was your own experience going into it, going, wait, I want to fragrance my home and there's nothing. And then you took it to another level. You had your starter friends in the focus group and started asking people about it. So it was, you really dug into, is there a need for this product? And I think that's such a great place to start. Would you agree?
Well, definitely, and I also feel like sometimes people don't know what they need, and this is a perfect example of that, is that the
Right.
Australian consumer back then didn't have or use these products. It's like asking someone, "Did they need a microwave before they have a microwave?" You know, Ford
Right.
used to say, if you would ask customers what they wanted, they'd say faster horses. So sometimes
Sure.
people don't know what problems you're solving till you actually invent something that solves that. So there was a little bit of that, but you're quite right, Patty. Like, it's all about what is the gap? What is the white space? What are we
Hmm.
filling? Or if it isn't a completely new to market product, what are you going to do that's unique, different, better to steal share from the
Exactly.
competition? And in this
Exactly.
market, I didn't have to steal any share. We created
Right.
the scented candle category down under.
Correct.
And in the US, on the contrary, we're stealing share because the share
Hmm.
isn't growing, right? Maybe it'll grow by CPA, 1, 2, 3%. Obviously, COVID, home fragrance grew like, it global
Sure.
stats, something like 35, 40%. But
Right.
it's a market steal in the US
Hmm.
compared to what it was here.
That is phenomenal. So after you have these focus groups and you realize that there is a gap, right? And what do you do next? Because from what I understand, you come from humble beginnings, right? You don't come from a very rich family. I mean, I come from very very humble beginnings, and I actually think that is one of the biggest reasons that I'm successful because I am hungry, man. I want to succeed. I want to build something. So is that where that hunger came from, and where did you take it after the focus group?
Well, it's so funny, and I love this podcast because I decided at a very young age that I wanted to live an extraordinary life. And I
Me
wanted it to
too.
be rich and full of amazing experiences. I wanted to travel everywhere. I wanted to see everything. I love fashion. I love glamour. I love fragrance, obviously, and I love amazing food and culture, and all of that costs money, all of it.
Right.
And
Right.
you're either going to fund it yourself or
Right.
you're going to find someone who's going to fund it for you.
Right.
And at 5'9" and a linebacker weight, I was really running out of hope that I was going to get a man to do that for me. I had a son at 19, my gorgeous son
Mhm.
Gregory, who's now 30, and he's incredible. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to have to do this myself. So I
Yeah.
went on a rampage trying to find an idea that I could build, but it
Mhm.
had to be authentically something that was valuable to me because I don't do things for money. I do things for love of
Absolutely.
product. And I've always said that if you build the best products and you focus
Mhm.
on what your customers want, the money will come.
Yes.
Provided the financials work. Obviously, you need the right
Of course.
cost base and so on. But I've always believed that. We're
Yes.
still privately owned. You're right. I came from very humble beginnings. My mother's a nurse. My father worked for the state, and we had no money. There's no
Mhm.
inheritance. So I had to figure it out. I think people like us have a very unique set of skills. We're
Mhm.
resilient, we're resourceful, because we have to be, or we're not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing about you building a life for yourself, you were saying you're 5'9", and that is really the best thing that could happen to you, is the notion that your Prince Charming isn't coming. And I realized my Prince Charming was not coming when I thought I had my Prince Charming. When I was dating the rich guy, that even me, even, I was always ingrained to make your own money, have your own shit, don't ever rely on a man. But to get to the next level of life that I wanted, right? The highfalutin traveling and flying first class and staying at the Four Seasons, that was going to be what a man was going to provide for me. I was able to pay my own bills. And when I was dating that guy, that's what I thought. I'm like, this is my Prince Charming. This is where my life's going to be. And he's going to bring that to me until I found out he was cheating on me.
Oh
And then
yeah.
that whole thing crumbled. That whole thing crumbled. And I quickly realized that if you want all that stuff, if you really want that lifestyle, you got to be your own prince. You got to look after yourself, and you have to make your own money to bring that lifestyle to you. Because if you're going to rely on someone else, either he's not coming, or if he comes, it might be temporary.
And even if it's long term, right? It's a risk.
Yeah,
There is an
right. Exactly.
incredible
Right.
risk putting all your eggs in one basket. And, I have friends that are extremely wealthy and they're very happy with their wonderful man who provides all of that. And I have friends that are down and out, like the movie,
Right.
Blue Sapphire with Kate Blanchett, because
Hmm.
they had it all. And then it
Right.
suddenly was taken from them in a way. And
Exactly.
that's just not a risk I wanna take. I could have gone old and ugly, as they say. It's so funny, but the other thing is too, is I wanted it all. I wanna be super
Hmm.
attractive to the man. I want to feel in love, and I'm not saying that that's not a great tactic, because for some people it is, and it works for them, but it didn't work for me because I don't
Right.
like to take that level of risk with my life. And
And not
also, I had a child at 19. I had to provide for him.
right. Right. Exactly. And you can't risk his life, right? It's one thing to risk
No.
your life, but to risk his life, that's a whole different thing. And yeah, and I always also say that the and I learned this. There was a time period where, when the market crashed in 2008, I lost my job in finance, everything shut down. And there was a period when I didn't work. So I was actually going to Barry's boot camp with all the soccer moms that were married to the rich people.
Yeah.
And I learned very quickly that their lives just look good. They're driving the G Wagons, they have all the fancy purses, they live in the mansions. But I'm telling you that all comes at a price and at a cost. None of the women were truly happy. Not one. Every single one of them, before class, I would hear them talk and complain about how their husbands either is controlling them, or, oh my gosh, I need to be back because I need to make sure that, we have such and such ready for him, or he was cheating, or he's not, emotionally available, or whatever. And, that lifestyle comes at a price. I have yet to know one person who's authentically happy in a lifestyle like that when they don't have anything for themselves. So that's why I
Well,
think
I
that,
do I do know some I do know one person, Patty, but I agree with you that it's rare.
okay,
Extremely. It's
one,
as rare
right?
as
You,
as
one.
rare as hen's teeth. Rare as hen's
It's an
teeth, and it's
aberration.
nothing.
Right, it's an aberration, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, like, it doesn't happen that often. So, your chances of being that one person is very, very low. All right. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, tell us how you made the prototype. Tell us how you actually got this off the ground, and where did you get the money?
So, I'm a big networker, massive, and I do it the word networking kind of conjures up different things to different people. But at the end of the day, I love people. I love
Hmm.
connecting with people, and I love spending time with people. And through that, I met my business partner, who is absolutely wonderful. And he's a plastic surgeon.
Okay.
His name is Work Nettle. And he had lived and trained in the US for his practice. And when I met him through my network, he said, Nicole, I've been looking for a business idea that I can invest in. And, because I'm a plastic surgeon, one day I'm going to get older. I'm not going to be able to stand all day and do that. And I want a business idea. And he got it. He got it.
Mm,
I did a business plan. I sort of mapped out my idea. So I did a proper business plan with all the assumptions that I knew. And I
right.
went to him with that and I asked for investment and he gave it to me. And it
Amazing.
was amazing
Amazing.
because, it wasn't this typical like BC or, that sort of start where you have some sharks that are trying to take advantage of you. And he's a genuinely wonderful,
Hmm.
kind, smart, entrepreneurial person. And he
Right.
saw this idea and he said, this is a good one. Let's try it. And he could afford to give me the seed capital. And I turned it into what we are today. So I got
Wow.
very lucky. A lot of entrepreneurs often ask me, that's their big problem. Like, how do you
Right. Where
find the
to
funding?
get
Well,
the
that
money?
there's no formula. There's no
Hmm.
formula. It's
Right.
about just turning over every stone till one something leads to the next. And if you genuinely have a good idea, to your point, and there is a
Hmm.
gap, you'll be able to find that money.
Yeah. Yeah, because people will be like, "Oh my gosh, I need this," right? Investors will be like, "Yes, this is needed. Here, I'm
This is a
gonna
good
and
idea.
this is a great idea, and I'm gonna get my money back plus," right? So they're not afraid to lose money when it's a great idea. And so, how did you actually start making soap? Were you familiar with how to make soaps or candles or
Well, the not no. I but the answer is no. And
okay?
to even compound that whole like crazy thought, we had to start our own factories. So we're one of the
Oh my
few
gosh!
brands on the planet that makes everything ourselves. And when I
Wow.
start, and that's because there was no, I had this idea of creating the world's best product, and the contract manufacturers that I could find down here in Australia weren't very good. So I
Mm,
decided, okay, we're going to have to start our own factory. And you just start doing a lot of research. You bring people in. Remember, I had investment, so I was able to say,
mhm.
okay, we need to fly someone out to help us consult with us about what equipment we're going to need and how to do this certain thing. But I would say now that we're 17 years old, our products are probably the best on earth. They really, really are. But that's
Amazing.
because I've been working at it for over 15 years to perfect it, to perfect it. What do I need to
Right.
change? How do we make it better? It's a never ending improvement scenario. And I had to learn. So, Patty, the short answer is it's very difficult. And even now,
Very.
there's things we learn every time we do a new type of product. There's
Mhm.
always something that you don't know about it that you have to learn about it to really master it and make something amazing.
And this is such a great lesson for all the listeners is that we typically get discouraged when we start something new because we're not good at it. And I want everyone to understand whatever you start new, you're going to suck at it in the beginning. I'm sure your first
Yeah.
prototype was not great. So,
Oh,
I've right,
terrible.
and I've seen this tweet, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's saying your first talk is going to be horrible. Your first written essay is going to be horrible. Your first dinner that you make is going to be horrible. Your first everything is going to be horrible, and it takes time for you to perfect your craft, and you have to keep working at it. And there's a theory that says that you have to spend 10,000 hours on something in order to be an expert. 10,000 hours. That is a lot of work, right? And in
Yeah.
order to be an expert, in order for you to be top of your game, that's what it requires. And even me with my TikTok channel, oh my gosh, I look at my first videos, I'm like, holy shit, what was I like amateur hour, versus what it is now.
You got it, but you have to start somewhere,
You
and it's
got to
one foot
start
in front of the
somewhere.
other. One foot in front of the
Exactly.
other.
Exactly. And that's why I find inspiration in you. And I think people should really find inspiration in your story because you didn't have a background in candle making. You didn't have a background in any of this. You were just a hustler with an idea and you really, really made it happen. And that really is such a great story for everybody to understand that you can do it too, right? I mean, you didn't have a secret sauce that others don't, correct?
I mean, I don't because look, I have always had an insanely good sense of smell and olfactive
Okay,
memory
great.
from a child from that from in terms of the business I chose to go into. I would say
Sure.
that you have to really be interested. A lot of people start a business and they really have no interest in the product or don't care about it. And
Right.
particularly in my field, which is beauty and home, you have to love it. You have to know it.
Yes.
You have to know what your customers want at a
Right.
very, very, very intimate, detailed level. If you've got that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and you're of course you can, and you just have to be look, they say all successful entrepreneurs have, like, 3 things in common, and it's not personality type, it's 3 things. They're resilient, they're incredibly optimistic no matter what, and they do not give up.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of the common thread that all entrepreneurs have, and I think if you have that, you can achieve anything.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. And, since you did say that, Nicole, how long did it take for you from the time that you started for you to get a taste of success, for you to say, okay, now I think I feel successful in doing this? How many years did it take?
It took a long time, so they say an overnight success is 10 years.
10
You
years.
know, you look at our
Absolutely. Yep.
brand you look at our brand, and we've been now going for 17. We just launched in the US less than 2 years ago. We're in Bloomingdale's, Neiman Marcus, about to launch in Dillard's. We're in Macy's this Christmas. We launched in Hudson Bay, which is the big Canada, and we have about 1,000 independent retailers. I would say I'm finally starting to feel successful, even
Wow.
though
17
on
years.
paper even though on paper and in terms of every business metric and financial
Hmm.
metric,
Right.
we've been successful year by year 3 because again, we started the category here, so we weren't clawing for
Sure.
share, we weren't fighting.
Sure.
But I think I've always set out to build a global fragrance brand. That's what I set out to do. That was my vision. And now that we've launched in the US and we're in China and New Zealand, Australia, and Japan, I said, okay, you know what? I think I'm finally getting there. But the US was the main thing because I'm American, obviously, and I'm from New York.
Right.
And if I can't make it in my own hometown, I don't feel like I've really made it. And now I do. I
Right.
feel like we've made it
Well, you know what, girlfriend, you did it. You had a vision, you
now.
executed it, you didn't let it go, and you are a global brand. Tell the listeners, I know you said, where you are, but Glasshouse Fragrances, where can they find you and your all your fabulous products?
Oh, well, I think the best place to start is to go to glasshousefragrances.com. There's a stockist locator that you can find. But in terms of department store, bigger retailers, we're in Neiman Marcus and Bloomingdale's. We'll be in Dillard's in September. And those are probably the best places to get the most of what we do. We're also at the Hut Group, Look Fantastic, which is a big online beauty store. And we're in about 1,000 independent, beautiful gift and boutique and
Amazing.
beauty apothecary style stores across the country. If you put your zip code in there, you can find us. But the products are amazing. So sorry to plug, Patty. Sorry to plug. You got to do
No,
it.
I want you to plug, and I want you to plug because I want to support women-owned businesses, and I want to support women who are hustlers who came from nothing and have made an amazing something of themselves, and you are an example of that. So, Nicole,
Oh,
thank you
Patty,
so
thank
much
you.
for being on the show. I mean it. Thank you so much for being on the show. You are an inspiration to me. I'm sure you're an inspiration to all the listeners. You've built such an amazing company. I'm going to buy a lot of your products and I'm going to support you and I hope the listeners will too. So thank you for being on our
Oh,
show.
thank you, Patty. And the feelings are mutual. So thank you for having me on today.
Of course. And thank you everyone for listening to the show. Please make sure to subscribe and also rate the show. That's the way that we keep things going. And until next time, never forget that a man is not a financial plan.